welcome everyone to the second annual Humboldt Opioid Safety Summit. This year, we're excited to bring to you our annual summit series in a virtual setting. Due to the COVID restrictions this year, we did postpone our event from April to this week, and we're super excited about the series that we have put together for you. First of all, I'd like to thank the contributors and sponsors of this event, RxSafe Humboldt Coalition with many of our partners, the Humboldt Community Health Trust, the California AHEC, Humboldt IPA, Aegis, and the North Coast Clinics Network. I just want to acknowledge all the work that each of them put towards bringing this series to you. So here we are at day one. This will be a week-long event every day from 12 to 2, and I'm hoping all of you will join us each day for some really fantastic program and materials. So I'm Rosemary DenOuden. I am the chair of RxSafe Humboldt, and I've had the privilege of being a part of this work since the beginning, back in 2013, and I'm honored to be able to MC today's program. Next slide. Before we get started, we do want to acknowledge that we're meeting virtually across the lands of many Indigenous people here in Humboldt, Del Norte, and our surrounding counties, including the Talawa, Dini, Yurok, Karuk, Hupa, Wiyot, and many rancherias, the Elk Valley, Resagini, Big Lagoon, Trinidad, Blue Lake, and Bear River. I know that there are many participants here in Humboldt County, but there's also participants across our state and nation. So I would just encourage you to understand the land that you are working and living on. We know that the opioid crisis disproportionately impacts Native American communities. And we also would like to acknowledge the important work that's happening here in Humboldt County and in Del Norte County across many of the Native American lands. And in fact, you're going to hear from one of those coalitions from Kamau later this week. And so just really want to say thank you to these coalitions and all the work they're doing and all the contributions that they are making. Before we get started with our agenda, I'm going to turn it over to Mykia, who has written something for this summit series today. So Mykia.
Ayakui, and good morning to everyone. My name is Mykia Washington. I work as a community outreach specialist with the Yurok Tribal Court, and I'm one of the lead facilitators of the Yurok Tribe Wellness Coalition. I assist with managing several grants under the coalition and programming efforts. To give you a little bit more about my background, because it sort of influenced the piece that I'm willing to share with you all today. I wrote this poem while I was actually studying social work and addictions while I was an undergrad student. I was participating in addictions counseling courses. I was working so hard to become an addictions counselor because my professors had sort of pushed me into that direction at the time, considering the rise of the opioid epidemic. And I didn't really understand the direct impacts of the opioid epidemic until it hit home and impacted my family in a serious way. My sister struggles with addiction on a daily basis, and she struggles with homelessness and mental illness and co-occurring disorders as well. And I also have several friends and family members that experience this issue. So I wanted to write a poem. It's called What It Looks Like, and I will share it all with you now. I remember the first time, the morning moisture, the heavy scent of clouds outshined the sun. It was freshman year, second semester. In class, my professor asked me, "What does the opioid epidemic look like to you?" Well, while I was thinking about ordering that new ColourPop lipstick, I imagined dirty hands, needles, a man standing in a dark corner on the wrong side of the street, and I don't know, dead bodies maybe. I didn't see people living with chronic pain addicted to prescribed pain medications. Because after all, what is chronic pain? It didn't look like responsible patients mutating into addicts, druggies, dope fiends, crackheads, and eventually dead. I remember the second time. The smell of freshly brewed tea flooded the kitchen. Anderson Cooper's voice playing in the background. Sitting at the kitchen table, my grandfather asked me, "So, you're studying this stuff now, aren't you? How do you feel about what's going on? What does the opioid epidemic look like to you?" This time, I imagined doctors. I imagined doctors prescribing excessive amounts of pills, hospitals, statistics, politicians making false promises, proposing strategic plans, and money. So much money. It looks like our government spending over $4.6 billion to combat the nation's growing epidemic. It looks like 42,000 Americans dead, 2016. It looks like Ohio planning to spend 1 billion, New Jersey 200 million, Minnesota 12 million. It looks like we have officially transitioned into an era of not wanting to feel any pain. I remember the third time. This time, I don't know where I was or who I was talking to, but something metaphysical transpired. This time, I imagined a dark room, my uncle, shades of the color blue, and most importantly, dear sister, I imagined you. I imagined mermaids, the ocean, and you. Because we crystallize as I internalize the blossom of your crystal eyes, sparkling hope like diamond butterflies, light blue. Butterflies melt into the palm of my hands. Oh, girdle of Venus, why must we feel so much? It looks like an awkward conversation with you, one full of metaphors, insiders, and me trying to convey what everyone else is too afraid to say. Dear Princess of Cups, your card lies reversed. I've watched you transform into a mermaid, and I've watched you swim far, far away. It looks like false perceptions of reality nurturing your escape. It looks like your reflection distorted, blocked by images of seashells, water, and fish. Swim back to us. It looks like your youth stripped away, your fairy tale daydreams yanked from your soul, thrown up into the sky like scattered clouds, swim back to us. It looks like your hopes and dreams as they diminish into 1,000 tiny fairies. You watch them fly away and say, "It is what it is. I need something for the pain." It looks like me telling you I'm in pain and we are all in pain. But the sky is not the ocean and the ocean is not you. Swim back to us. To her, I am I'm a soft summer's breeze. I am a faint whisper. To her, I am not broken, but no, we all suffer from chronic pain. But I guess the only difference is I like flying in circles. And I've been flying for so long that I've forgotten what I look like. The next time someone asks me, what does it look like? What does the opioid epidemic look like to you? I said, it looks like me, and it looks like you. Thank you, everyone.
Wow, thank you, Mykia. Thank you for sharing your experience through poem. All right, next slide. Today's session is being recorded. We're also live streaming on Facebook, so we're super excited about being able to reach many people through this summit series. All of the materials can be found on the RxSafe Humboldt website by navigating to the summit series page. We recognize that some of the things that we will be discussing today and in subsequent days might be triggering. There will be some sensitive topics discussed. So if you do need support, please reach out. We've provided the crisis line here in Humboldt County and the national helpline. And feel free to reach out to any of us as well here at the coalition. As we go throughout today and the rest of this week, we will be hearing from presenters, but we will also have the opportunity to join breakout rooms and group discussions. So we encourage you when you are speaking during those breakouts or group discussions, that you exercise the step up, step back rule, that you show kindness and respect, and you recognize that this space is free of judgment. Seek clarification as needed and respect each other's privacy. We just heard Mykia's story, and later today we're going to be hearing some other stories. And we are so grateful for everyone sharing their stories with us, but please respect the privacy of those individuals. When you join today's webinar, you are muted and your videos are off. But when you join breakout discussions, we ask that you would turn your video on if you are comfortable. When you are not talking, please mute. And if you have a question during any of the presentations, feel free to use that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You can also reach out to staff using the chat feature as well. And if you have any questions about anything that you see or any the presentations or CEUs, please feel free to reach out to us about any of that. Our contact information can be found on the RxSafe Humboldt website. We are offering CME and CEU credits for all of these presentations. But in order to obtain those credits, you will need to complete an evaluation for each day and submit the required information on those forms. We will need all completed evaluations by 5 p.m. on Friday, the 23rd. We will be sending these evaluations via email, and they will also be in the chat at the end of each day. So I'm going to continue some welcoming remarks and give you sort of a state of the union of the opioid epidemic. We just heard from Mykia, and in a little while we are going to hear a fantastic moderated discussion with Dr. Candy Stockton and 3 individuals that have lived experiences. I am so honored to have these 3 individuals with us today. And when we were designing this series, we knew that we wanted the perspective and the voice of the individuals with lived experiences to be front and center. And so that's why we're bringing you this presentation on day 1. So often when we go to conferences or other learning opportunities, I find anyway that the best part of those conferences are the folks that have really lived whatever we're talking about. But often those are at the end of the conference, and sometimes people leave before they even get to hear those valuable perspectives. So in order for that not to happen, we felt that we had to have it first on our agenda. So that's what we're bringing to you today. But before we get to that, just a little bit of updates regarding the data and what we know about the opioid epidemic here in Humboldt County. These numbers are from 2018, and they do represent a national perspective. These numbers have not changed much over the last 2 years, and in fact, they've gotten worse, unfortunately, across our nation. The number that is most concerning to me is that first one, that over 130 individuals die every day of an opioid-related death. That is too many, way too many. And this has been going on for years and years and years. In Humboldt County and Del Norte County and our surrounding regions, we've done a lot of work to turn the tide and continue to work towards having 0 overdose deaths every year. And we've made some progress, but we definitely have a long way to go. We get our data at the coalition through the CEDPH opioid surveillance dashboard. And unfortunately, some of the data is not as readily available as it once was due to the COVID epidemic. And many of the individuals that were responsible for reporting this data have been redeployed to more important activities. But nonetheless, it's still important to report. At the end of 2019, Humboldt County's overdose death rate per 100,000 residents was 18.16. As compared to California, we are over 2 times the state average of overdose deaths. We are disproportionately affected by the opioid epidemic in California. And if you look at that map of the state, you'll notice that Humboldt County and the surrounding regions is higher than the rest of the state. Next slide. Our local Department of Health and Human Service epidemiologist, Ron Largusa, is a gem, and he has been able to keep current with the data here in this region. And I'm super fortunate to be able to report these numbers to you today. If you'll notice, about halfway down this page there, drug poisoning deaths or overdoses have gone down slightly in 2020 from last year, but still we are much higher than what we were in 2018. So you'll see there that we have a year-to-date projected rate of 26.8, which is way too many. Next slide. But there is some good news, and this is a result of the work that's been happening in RxSafe Humboldt and with many of our partners. The prescribing rate of opioids has gone way down over the last several years and continues to decline. This is due in part to the safe prescribing guidelines that the coalition has produced, the academic detailing that has been performed across our region, and the continual efforts in our healthcare community to prescribe opioids in a safe and effective manner. So we continue to work with our local healthcare community to continue to reduce the rate of unsafe prescribing of opioids. Next slide. And this by far is the thing that we have can be most proud of is the rate of medication-assisted treatment here in Humboldt County. At the beginning of 2019, and this number I'm sure is much higher now, the rate of prescribing of buprenorphine, the medication-assisted treatment for opioid use disorder, is mountains above the state average. We are at 121 per 100,000. So we are prescribing medication-assisted treatment to our residents that need it, and we're doing a much better job than across the state. So that's the data, and we are hoping to get an update from the state and how we compare to the rest of the state really soon, and we'll be sharing that on our website and through our newsletter. So be sure to subscribe to those newsletters so that you can get the most up-to-date information. So with that, I am now going to turn it over to Dr. Candy Stockton and our main presentation for the day. We have Yvonne, Morgan, and Jamie here today to speak to us about their perspectives, and so that we can have wisdom from the lived experiences. So Dr. Stockton, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Rosemary, and everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Just to kind of recap on what Rosemary has pointed out, historically, when healthcare looks at a medical problem or a disease, we put a bunch of professional experts in the room together and come up with a plan that we think is best to treat people experiencing that situation. And we continue to do this in spite of the fact that research has shown us over and over again that when you talk to individuals who are needing treatment for a disease, and when you involve them in the planning stages, that our outcomes are so much better than when we paternalistically prescribe treatment courses for them. So today we have Yvonne, Morgan, and Jamie with us, and we're going to talk to them about their lived experience with addiction, with treatment, and with our community. And I'm going to start by asking Yvonne, if you could please just share a little bit about yourself with us and about your background.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Yvonne Guido. First of all, I am a Yurok tribal member. I am a grandmother, a wife, a mother, and I'm a person in recovery. My clean date is April 26, 2007. And I currently work at Two Feathers as a SUDS counselor. And I've been working in the field about 11, 12 years, directly out of treatment pretty much. And I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you, Yvonne. Jamie, could you share a little bit about your past with us?
I am Jamie George. My clean date is December 5th, 2018. I'll have 2 years and about a month and a half. I'm a full-time student at College of the Redwoods in the Addiction Studies program, and I work full-time at Waterfront Recovery Services as residential support. And I was out there in my addiction for a long time.
Thank you, Jamie. Morgan, can you share a little bit of your history with us?
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Morgan. I'm 38 years old. I'm a product of my environment. My parents were addicts and alcoholics. I was introduced to drugs by my family. I grew up in juvenile hall in the system, spent a lot of years in jail on the streets. I'm clean now. I'm currently in a treatment facility, about to graduate. My clean date is August 3rd, 2020, and I'm going to transition into the RA resident advisor position. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I really appreciate you guys asking me. Thanks.
Thank you, Morgan. Morgan, could you tell us what it was like to look for treatment in our community, and you know, if there were things that were barriers or that were beneficial to you when you were going through that process?
Sure. I have a lot of experience with this. I arrived in Humboldt County in 2000. That's when I discovered heroin. Immediately when I tried it, I loved it, but at the same time hated it and wanted to get off of it. I sought out every treatment center there was in the county. It seemed like there was a waiting list, but also there was a high turnover rate. People would quickly come in with, every intention in the world to get clean, but would soon relapse, so beds would open up. And I haven't really experienced much, I guess you would say, prejudice from any treatment centers in Humboldt County. I think a lot of them are great. Crossroads and Waterfront, in my personal story, I've experienced the most help from, especially Waterfront. They have a great team over there. But everyone has its own personality, I guess I would say. Yeah, I guess that, of course we could use a lot more, but in my opinion, we got a great group of folks running things around here.
So Morgan, if I could follow up on that, you said something that was interesting to me. You said that there was a rapid turnover because people would experience relapse and then they would be out of treatment. In your experience, when you have had a relapse, have you been kicked out of or moved out of your treatment program, or was it more that it was hard for you to follow up with treatment? Did they drop you or did you drop them when that relapse happens?
There's been both. Years ago, I got kicked out of a treatment center for something that I feel wasn't grounds for a termination. Sure, maybe a punishment, but wasn't ground for a termination. And that did happen. There was lots of times when, like I said, I came into treatment, really trying to get a better life, tired of living on the streets, lying, cheating, stealing, scrambling to get my drugs. I would come in and I would get involved with the crew, in my opinion, that's just there for the courts, and they're not taking things seriously. They got placed there on probation, and they're doing things when nobody's looking. And how complacent I got involved with that, and got blinded. And so, sure, my disease is centered in my mind, so it's always trying to deceive me and play tricks on me. And I bit that bait like a largemouth bass.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jamie, can you tell us about your experience with trying to access treatment locally? Were there things that were barriers for you? Were there things that were benefits for you or that were helpful when you were going through that process?
I got help. Let's go to the last, right when my addiction, when I wanted to get into treatment. Hatcher helped me get into Waterfront and the Eureka Police Department. They helped me get into Waterfront real easy. Sergeant LaFrance, and they made a deal with me. They'd drop a jaywalking ticket if I got on the waiting list for Waterfront, and I was already on the waiting list, so they just kind of got me in there quicker. And I've been in 9 different treatment facilities, and Waterfront is the only one that ever worked. And I don't know, I'm 54. I was 52 when I went in there. And it's the only program that has a doctor on site. And this doctor believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, and saw something in me. Dr. Ruby Bayan.
Jamie, hold on for just a second. You just ended up muted. There we go.
So this is my 3rd semester at College of the Redwoods, and I'm real excited. I think I'm really following through with school, and I'm getting A's, and it's just so much of a better life. I was on Social Security for years and years. That was my goal, just to get on SSI. I'm off that now. I work full time and pay rent. I have my own place. And I lived in their transitional house for 16 months, and I was afraid to move out of there, but I'm doing good. I'm glad I did. And yeah, so I got a lot of help in the community. Hatcher helped me get my dog. I have a service dog that I love to death. She's 11, and they helped me get her shots all up to date and got us into Waterfront. And I'm real grateful to Eureka Police Department also.
So Jamie, I think what I heard you say in there pick out is that having somebody who believed in you and stuck with you through the process, even when it was hard, has been really critical for your success. But would that be an accurate reflection?
Definitely. And still believe in me, and still just, they're my mentors. I have like a couple of counselors over there. Well, 3 of them, Joe Pinkert and Ty Zimmer and Matt Aldinger. They're like my mentors, and I work with these amazing people, and I never had a job that I look forward to going to, because I get to be around addicts all day long that are getting clean, and I get to see the lights come back in their eyes, and I just love it. And another thing I do for my recovery is I go to Sweat Lodge whenever I can, and I go to ceremonies.
Thank you. And Yvonne, you have the longest in recovery, so your experiences around what seeking treatment were like happened kind of in a different time in our county. Can you share some of that with us, and what some of the barriers were and what some of the things were that helped you ultimately be successful?
So my journey, speaking for myself, like I had no idea that treatment was even out there. My addiction started when I was a young teen, and I started with marijuana, and I ended with heroin. I had no idea that there was treatment out there, that it was even an option. And even worse yet, as a Native woman, I didn't know that at that time I had treatment options that were free to me. I didn't know what resources were out there. So for me, how I ended up in treatment was through Humboldt County Task Force, and I got this option of trying treatment or going to prison. And so I definitely took the treatment option. I was not ready to quit at that time. I think Morgan was talking about all those people that come into treatment through probation. You know, that was me. I got sent to, well, it was Prop 36 at the time. I met with my probation officer, and then I met with a substance abuse counselor. Her name is Bridget Bush. And she recommended that I go to Crossroads. And so at that time, Crossroads was just ending their 18-month program. So I went into treatment with people that had been in there for 1.5 years. So I think that helped me because they really took it serious, the ones that were in there. I did 90 days in treatment. The first 2 months, I was totally planning on going back to using. I was just trying to check off the box for probation. I had an amazing counselor. Her name is Dawn Fetter. She's still out there. And she was hard on me. Like she wouldn't take any of my bull crap, you know? She really had me focus on my core issues. So she had me write a letter to my son that had passed away. And I think that was not the reason that I was using drugs, but a lot of the reason I was using drugs, not being able to deal with your feelings. And I was running. So she saw that on day one. She gave me that assignment and I pushed it off. And my 3rd month in treatment, I had to write it to complete treatment. And so that's when change started happening for me. And I stayed at Crossroads. I moved into their RA house. I ran groups over there in the mornings. I also went into an aftercare program because then I had found out about United Indian Health Services, which offered outpatient treatment. And for me, like while I was in Crossroads, you know, I knew I was Native, but I never involved myself in culture. While I was in there, there was one of the other residents introduced me to Sweat Lodge. And that just opened up this relationship with my culture, with a belief in creator. And things started changing. Being at United Indian Health and being around other people doing the same thing was a benefit to me big time. And I don't think that's changed today. There's a lot of options that are open, even more so today, like with Medi-Cal and partnership being able to pay for treatment. I mean, a lot of doors have opened up. I do believe we need more treatment centers, obviously, and more money, obviously. But yeah, I don't think my journey is any different than anybody else's. And I'm thankful that task force knocked on the door that day and I got the opportunity to get well.
Yvonne, I'm going to go off script just a little bit, so I apologize. I'm going to throw you a question that's not on the list.
That's okay.
I would love to hear a little bit more about how important cultural practices have been in helping you maintain your recovery long term, and also if you have any advice for those of us who work in substance use disorder treatment about how we can help people who are Native connect with cultural practices that might be beneficial to them.
Absolutely. It's a little tricky now with COVID happening, but we're finding solutions. Culture for me has been everything, and it's not so much just the culture. I would say it's a sense of belonging. You know, prior to learning about my culture, my sense of belonging was with the people that I was using with. You know, culture brought me this opportunity to find balance in my life. To teach to my children, to my grandchildren, to learn from others, taught me about respect for others, for myself. Today, you know, I don't forget how blessed we are to be able to live in a county that offers so many resources for us. Walking on the beach, walking in the woods, being able to gather. I would participate in Sweat Lodge at least once a week. With COVID, that's different. But I still am able to bring things into my life that connect me to Creator and to positive people in my life. As far as people that are working in the community, there's a lot of agencies. You know, I'll pitch Two Feathers right now. We're doing some amazing work as far as connecting with our youth through virtual conferences. I know a lot of our team were like putting together cultural baskets, you know, bags for the kids. For the boys, I think they had like sticks where they learned how to build their tassels. We're getting ready to send out some beading packs and have moms and daughters work on beading, and we'll do that all virtually. So I would just reach out. I'm sure you've got the Yurok tribe, you've got Kamau, you've got United Indian Health, you've got Two Feathers. If I'm leaving anybody else, I'm really I'm sorry, but there's resources out there to connect.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Mhm.
It's I think like the famous quote about addiction, the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection and community.
Absolutely.
Morgan, could you talk to us a little bit about your experience with stigma in the healthcare system and in the community, and what that's like when you're trying to get into recovery?
Sure. You know, I've had many attempts to try and get clean, and I've been all over the state of California trying to get clean. The courts have sent me here, they've sent me there. I've been here, I've been there. Pertaining to our county, trying to get services. I have experienced, I would say at times, a lot of hardship. You know, there's rules, you know, at certain places. And I'm not trying to bash anybody. I'm just trying to get my point of view across and what it feels like on this side of the street. Waterfront has a rule there that, you know, 3 times and you're out, you know. And so there was a time when I relapsed, or I made that mistake. I own that, but then wanted to correct it and wanted to go right back into treatment. And they told me that I had to wait a year to get back in. I understand that that's funding issues, but you know, it really delivers a message of, you know, kind of like, oh, I don't matter. Oh, you know, they don't care. Oh, I might as well just stay this way. It's a lot easier, or I'm never going to get help. I'm really glad that I made it through that time, and luckily they cut that time in half, and I was able to come back after 6 months and get clean. But you know, it's really when you're up there begging with tears coming out your eyes, please help me. I don't want to live like this anymore. And they say, sorry, man, we can't do anything for you. You got to wait a year. It just feels like there's no hope anymore, you know, and it's just depleted. At the hospital, I really like that they have a policy now that if you're done and you want to go up there and you want to get Suboxone, that they will make you wait 12 hours. They'll set you up in a little lobby, and you can wait your time out there. They'll draw your blood, they'll take a urine sample, and when the time is right, that they will give you Suboxone there on the spot, and then give you a referral to a Suboxone program in our county and get you services right away. I think that's awesome. And the MIST team downtown, LaFrance and Swanson, God bless those guys, man. They are in the trenches down at Free Mill every day, talking to people with mental illness, talking with people with drug addictions, and trying to get them as many services as possible every single day. They're walking the beat, and they got me into where I am now, and I'm really thankful to the friends for that. Really am.
Morgan, you and Jamie have both mentioned actually the MIST team, and can you tell me, is that different than your experience with law enforcement in other areas? You said you've been all over the state of California. Have you had much in the way of run-ins with law enforcement in other areas?
Yeah, so in my early years, I was rebellious. You know, a lot of trauma happened when I was a kid. And I believe over the years, I have formed my perception of the world from my trauma, from my fear, from my shame, from my guilt. And so those are my key issues of why I hit the page and I run. I had been to Crossroads twice. I had been to HRC twice. I had been to Lee Brown a long time ago when it was here. And I had been to Detox numerous times. And I caught a charge. I got put on drug court. Pamela Millsap was involved in that. God bless her. I love her. And she said, well, let's try something new. If you can't get clean in this county, let's send him somewhere else. So they got me a bus and they sent me to LA to a program right downtown Skid Row, Salvation Army for a year. I mean, they're selling crack across the street and turning, you know, just, And I made it 90 days. I did. I gave it a solid go, and I got kicked out. I used drugs on my birthday. I own that. I did that. And now fear set in. I'm in a city where I don't know anybody. I'm white in a cultural neighborhood. And so I stayed on the street down there. I avoided my problems. I ran, and LA County Jail finally got me. Cops tackled me by the throat downtown, and 7 days later, I'm on a 3-day bus ride back to Humboldt to then serve and face that same judge for 10 months in jail. So yes, I have experienced it all over. Butte County Jail, Butte County Juvenile Hall.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jamie, can you talk to us about your experience with stigma and any advice you have to those of us listening about how we can change the way we interact with people struggling with substance use disorders to better support them?
The only stigma I had, I created myself. You know, I got given every chance by drug court, and I finally blew all those chances, and I got to do my first prison term and my only prison term. I was a chronic relapser. I couldn't get more than 30 days. I think 6 months was the longest I ever had. And I want to shout out to Yvonne. Her and her husband have always welcomed me back to Sweat Lodge, you know, and all the times I relapsed, they always welcomed me back. And just something's different this time. I spent a year over at Open Door with Dale Ward in the Suboxone program, and that helped me tremendously. It got me back on my feet. And so I can't say enough about that program. That helped me a lot also. It's just, I got what I put into it, you know. Dawn Feder was my counselor at Crossroads, and I did real good there for a long time, for about 14 months. It was an 18-month program back then. And, but, you know, I left because I got mad, and, you know, so it was all my own doing. It was, medicine man told me a long time ago, and I just want to say, I'm not native, I'm Italian by descent, but I ran with the natives in prison, and that's where my heart's at. And I just love the culture, and it's helped me out the most. I go to Sundance ceremonies every summer, except for this summer because of COVID. And I thought that would keep me clean, doing the Sundance ceremony. It just wasn't enough. I needed just to find a 12-step program. I go to Narcotics Anonymous now regularly, every 3 times a week at least. And the medicine man told me I have to do the footwork. And so that's what I do. I do the footwork now. And I'm getting results.
Thank you. Yvonne, I'm hoping that you could share with us a little bit about your own experience with stigma, but also talk about how the stigma around substance use disorders affects women and families, especially tribal women and families. I know that can have an impact in not only how they're perceived, but also in custody issues and in maintaining family structure.
Wow, that's a big question. I'll do my best. My own stigma, I had to do a lot of work to battle the stigma that I put upon myself. You know, community, definitely, when you're walking down the street and you've got track marks up and down your body, people are going to look at you and it's in a certain type of way, you know, less than. I don't know how many of us can drive into Eureka and not see what's happening out there. You know, people are broken, people are dying. For me today, I see them and it's just sad. It's sad that they're not able to get the help, you know, that they need. But I know a lot of others, you know, I have family members that definitely looked down upon me. I was definitely the black sheep. Like, I did not feel the love from many, you know, and it took a lot of work on my end to understand that that's not me, that's them, you know. I think we as a community are starting to do very well at decreasing the stigma that's going on by having conferences like this, by talking about it, by letting addicts that are, you know, here we are sitting on this panel today and we're turning our lives around. You know, we can change. I am, you know, in my active addiction, I did not have any of my children with me. My ex-husband wouldn't even allow my daughter to come and see me because of my addiction, and same with, you know, my boys. but that turned around with hard work. You know, I talked about crossroads. I was able to, my ex-husband started seeing me in a different light, you know, and my son was struggling with opioid addiction, and we brought him out here and I put him into Crossroads, and gosh, that was, I think, 8 years ago. So I don't know. And as far as stigma with Native people, that's always a hot topic, you know, let alone just being a Native person and the stigma that comes along with that. If you look at moms, you know, that are struggling with addiction and are losing their children or having children born, you know, tox positive, there's always going to be that stigma. I can't speak for all of our communities, but I think when something's going on in your family, you don't want to talk about it and broadcast it so that a person can get help. I don't know if I'm saying this right, but there's a lot of shame around addiction. You know, I have a son that's in prison right now, surrounded all around addiction. I talk about it. You know, I connect. You talked about connection. You connect to others in that way. Like, we're just going to love them up until they can love themselves. And it's the same with the moms and the dads and the children. We have a huge epidemic of addiction with our Native youth right now. And that correlates to, you know, the suicides. And I think we're trying to combat it with talking about it instead of staying quiet about it and reaching out. And I know the work that we do at Two Feathers isn't that, you know, box clinical work. We find the gray areas to get out there and meet these families, these kids where they're at. I work in an amazing program called Making Relatives. It's a intensive care coordinations, it's RAP, but we're able to like take these moms, we're able to take them like to ceremonies. I had a family with a mom last year, and she was able to bring her children to the brush dance, dress her daughter for the first time. I was able to be there for that process. I don't know. I think it's just reaching out and keep doing what you guys on the panel are doing, all of you that put this together. I don't know, and see us with love, you know? That's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you. Morgan, could you weigh in on the issue of stigma and your experience with that?
Sure, I'd love to. You know, stigma to me, I don't know. I believe it's like a form of racism in a way. You know, if you're in the supermarket and you see a guy on crutches with a cast on his leg, you're like, oh man, let me hold the door for you. Let me help you out. Oh, I'm really sad that happened to you. Well, it's the same thing with addiction and disease, man. It's in the DSM 5 as an addiction, but it's in the mind, so people can't see it. And I really believe that when you see a person with a sign and they're begging for change and it says, you know, hungry, sure, they're probably going to use some money to feed their disease, but I believe that that's a mirrored image of the trauma that person has experienced in their life. And a lot of people, I feel, in our community are ignorant to the fact of what addiction really is. They want to bash on Hatcher for their needle exchange program instead of educating themselves on what it really is. That bothers me. So in my opinion, I would say enter in some compassion and some empathy. You know, all over the world right now, it's all lives matter. Well, we matter too. We really matter too. And instead of bashing the next man, try and help the next man. It's hard going to the hospital here. I've had to go to the hospital for abscesses and a surgery. And as soon as they ask you what you're here for your visit and you tell them, you just see their whole face change. And you're treated very unfairly. And a lot of people that I know, you know, like, hey man, you should go to the hospital for that. Oh, I don't want to go up there because I'm going to be treated a certain way. And so they will actually not go for a severe health issue because they're going to be treated a certain way. So again, I just believe that that's when that compassion and that empathy should come in. You know, when you go to NA, the first thing you hear there is love and tolerance is our code. weren't really loved on the streets, weren't really loved in other areas. But when you come into NA or AA, we're going to love you till you love yourself. That's what I got. Thanks.
Thank you, Morgan. We talk a lot about the stigma that other people apply to substance use, and you guys have shared some really powerful examples of that. But I also am hearing you talk about the stigma that you apply to yourselves, or the way you see yourselves negatively. Do any of you have any advice to share with us about things that have been helpful for you learning to see yourself differently? Jamie, could I start with you?
Sure. The biggest thing I do that helps me see myself better is going to ceremony, the sweat lodge. That's where I get the most work done. To me, when I go in the sweat lodge, that's like going to 100 Narcotics Anonymous meetings at one time. It's where you can do all 12 steps all at one time, and it's where I get the most work done.
Thank you, Jamie.
Sure.
Morgan, could you share?
Sure, about the stigma I place on myself and what helps.
Yeah, and what helps, yeah.
Yeah, I really just came to a point where I had stuffed so much inside. I never wanted to deal with it. I just wanted to avoid it. And I thought that if I just got clean and sober and stopped actively using that, I would be okay. And everybody that knows me could see the shame that I felt and the guilt. And I just had to come to a point where my answers aren't in the bottom of a spoon. They aren't. And I'm always strapped with a backpack on my back, and I'm homeless on the street, surrounded by people that don't care about me. And I had to come to a point where I matter, and I had to accept what has happened, what I've done, what I've become, and I've wanted more out of life. And every day I wake up, I pray, I turn my will, my life over, and I set out my goal to be better today than I was yesterday. Even if it's only a little bit, I'm still gonna try. And really, I'm not that bad of a person, but my disease is always trying to tell me that I am, and that I'm not good enough, and that nobody loves me. And then I put myself down in this deep, dark place where, of course, I'm not going to get anywhere. If I'm always thinking negatively, I'm going to get negative results. And so I had to really change my perception of myself, of the world. I had to start opening up and trusting people. I mean, 25 years on the street, never trusted a single soul. I kept my money stuffed down in my sock. And so I had to come into the rooms, come into the program, come into life in all relationships. And it started with myself. And I had to trust people. I had to be open. I had to be willing. And I just had to try. Just really had to try. If I put half the effort that I put into surviving on the street, I think I'll be just fine. And I finally can breathe, because I don't have to survive anymore. I could just live and be. It's an emotional thing, man. Really, when you've had enough. I got goosebumps right now. I've had enough of that turmoil. So I took the stigma off myself and transitioned into a loving, kind person.
Thank you, Morgan. And Yvonne, I'm going to shift the question just a little bit for you. Later in the week, as we talk about the nature of addiction as a chronic disease, we'll talk about this piece a little bit more, but we do have this tendency to it's an all or nothing. Now you're in your disease, now you're in recovery. And if you've been in recovery for a long time, we tend to I don't know, maybe whitewash it a little bit. Do you find that it's still a struggle for you? Do you still struggle with self-stigma this far into recovery? Or is there a point where you get past that?
I don't think it's so much self-stigma. I think it's work I need to do on my own self-esteem. When we talk about addiction, drugs weren't the problem. My opinion, drugs weren't the problem. There was something happening that brought us to a place where we needed to do drugs to feel better, whether it be from pain, which wasn't my case. It wasn't physical pain, it was emotional pain, And so what I found really important in the beginning of my recovery and today, 13 plus years in, is still doing the work on myself. So it's so important. Like I said, I work in the field, and I don't want to speak bad about Matt whatsoever. It's saving lives. I used Suboxone in the very beginning, before I went into treatment, when I was planning, but I think it's medically assisted treatment. So the treatment piece. So when you're talking about the stigma that you put on yourself, it's not just taking the medication, it's actually doing the work. So I don't have a stigma on myself any longer. It's because I've done the work and because I talk about it. You know, it's part of who I am. You know, I grew up in this community. People know me. They've seen me at my worst. They've seen me at my best, you know. And for me, it's part of the journey to always keep working on myself. You know, we do this medicine wheel. You got to check in with yourself physically. You know, are you doing everything that you're supposed to do? Are you eating too much junk food? Like, are you getting enough sleep? Mentally, what's your thoughts like? For me, when I think about that, is like, what's my self-talk? Am I talking bad to myself? You know, that's not going to make me feel good. So just always changing that negative talk into a positive. Emotionally, like, am I too happy, too sad? Like, am I evenly balanced? Am I able to process my feelings? Like, yeah, there's days when that thought comes into my head, man, it sure would be nice just to do a shot, just one shot, and not have to feel this right now. But that's my addict, 13 years in, not wanting to feel anything. But also, you know, there's Yvonne in there that says, no way, that's stupid. That's not going to solve anything. So being able to deal with your emotions, that takes so many of us out. Breakups, you know what I mean? Loss of a loved one. Right now, we're coming up on holidays. This is a big trigger time for those of us in recovery, family members that aren't here anymore. You know, I don't know, it's a big trigger. So just to be mindful of your emotions. And then spiritual, whatever that is for you, whatever that is, are you connecting to something, whatever it is for you? And to keep that medicine wheel in balance. It's like a tire. So if your medicine wheel is full, you know, it's spinning. But if you're eating a bunch of junk food, your physical side of that wheel is going to go flat. So you're not going to move like you're supposed to. So yeah, it's just a process of working on yourself. And I think that's true for people with a substance abuse problem, disorder, or a normal person. Like, it's just taking care of yourself.
Thank
I hope
you.
I answered you.
You absolutely did. Thank you so much. I am supposed to remind everybody that we will have a question and answer session, and you can use the Q&A button on the bottom to relay your questions to the panelists if you have specific questions that you'd like to ask. And then I am going to go slightly off script again, and I'm going to ask a fairly personal question. So if you're not comfortable asking or answering, please don't feel bad about it. But I'm wondering if you guys, you mentioned, Yvonne, how difficult the holidays are for people. I'm wondering if any of you have tips or tricks that you use to prepare for that difficulty that you would be willing to share with people. So something that you use when you know you're headed into a trigger or a difficult time for you. Morgan, I see you nodding. Does that mean that you're willing to answer that question?
Yeah, sure. Anybody that really knows me knows that the holidays are the toughest time for me. My mom died during the holidays when I was 13. I held on to that pain for years, and I tried to change the outcome in my mind. And by doing drugs, I tried to change it, but she never disappeared and left me alone. My daughter died 5 years ago during Christmas. I had to hold her until she stopped breathing in the hospital. She was a preemie. And, you know, another thing to shove down in there and never look at again. You know, it's hard, man. When you have a disease like mine, when it calls, I answer. I don't normally have the tools to be like, hey, my daughter just died, I'm grieving. What do you guys think I should do? I don't have those healthy coping skills. So over the years, I've had to learn the hard way, right? Bump my head and then kind of get back on track and then bump it again. Okay, that didn't work. Let's try something else. And so what I've learned is to turn something negative into a positive. A dear friend of mine, Sarah, taught me that, just to take that negative fire you feel inside and turn to something positive. So, right, like Yvonne just mentioned, these are the holidays coming up. So one thing I did, instead of going to use on one of those days and try and change the story again, which will never happen, I turn it into something positive. And so I go do a balloon release ceremony. I get a balloon, I go down there, I allow myself to feel a bit of sadness, right? That's healthy, that's what we do. And then I remember a happy memory. And I let my support system know what's going on with me. you know, make a couple phone calls. I have a sponsor, call my sponsor, tell them what's going on, let my family members know what's going on. And my dad and I, we always kind of chat during those times. Hey, you need to talk, I'm here if you need to. And I wear this bracelet right here. It's no matter what bracelet. And it's no matter what, man. It's no matter what. If somebody dies, if I don't get a job, or if I get broken up, it's no reason to use, because it's only going to trap me again. That there's much more to live, and I'm not honoring anybody's memory by being the worst of myself. And I really had to stop those selfish tendencies. It's a selfish act to be a part of somebody's life and then use and disappear, you know? And so one thing that I've learned over the years, again, the hard way, is that when I do that, I'm not thinking about anybody, and I don't care about relationships or friendships or anybody's emotions. And it's just all about me. And that's what my disease wants. It wants the final result of me to be dead. And so I really have to stop, and I have to think about what's going on. Is this going to best help the situation or not? And then carry out the best plan. And if I don't know, and if something is bounced around in here that's highly negative, I need to get it out quick, because then a bunch of pressure from life is going to build on top of it, and then I'm just going to blow. So it's all about healthy coping techniques, and definitely reaching out, that connection like you guys talked about. That's the success.
Wow, Morgan, thank you so much for sharing that with us. That's painful to listen to, so I can't imagine how painful that was to live through. I'm almost afraid to ask after that, but Jamie, do you have any tips or tricks that you use for helping you get through the holiday season, or through a situation that you know is going to be difficult for you?
Okay, this will be my third Christmas clean. I spent one of them in treatment, and this will be my second one free. There's marathon meetings you can go to. I have a sponsor I've had for the last almost coming up on 2 years that I call daily. Still, every day I call my sponsor. If I don't call him and talk to him personally, I text him. So I'm really lucky I have this guy Skip in my life, Skip E. And yeah, there's marathon meetings, and you know, there's events that AA and NA have, and you know, it's going to be tough because of COVID. You know, that's changed everything around. And there's a lot of meetings though that are on Zoom that you can participate on, and there's a couple that are live and in people's yards, you know, where we socially distance. And it's going to be difficult.
Thank you. And Yvonne, do you have any tips or tricks that you would share with other people in recovery for how to get through difficult times, or how to plan for difficult times?
Gosh, Morgan, your story really rang true. Early on in, you know, like I said, my son passed away, and I would like plan up to that day, like the 2 months before. I'm just like, oh my God, on that day I'm gonna have a meltdown. It's not like that anymore. I honor him, you know, every day. You know, he's the reason that I stay on this journey. But as far as planning for holidays, I would hope that if you're new in recovery, that you've began to build a support group around you, like Jamie was saying, through Zoom. It's challenging, you know. I feel for, you know, those of you that are just coming into recovery and trying to maneuver through COVID. You know, for I'm sure all of us, when we got clean, you know, they pounded into our head, get to those meetings, and that was so that you found this group that you could connect to. So, I mean, we can't focus on the negative. We got to focus on the positive and jump onto those Zooms. Pick up the phone. Most of us have FaceTime or through Messenger or something now too. Just reach out to people that are in your support group. Family members that are supportive of you, you know, identify those family members, whether they're blood or they're, you know, family that you picked up along the way. Reach out, but don't be alone. Don't be alone. You know, that's what I recommend. Find those people that are there to support you.
Thank you, Yvonne. So I have one last question before we head into the Q&A session, but the last question is actually, what thoughts would you like to leave the audience with today? So I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to skip to the audience questions, and then I'm going to come back to that question at the end, because I would really like to leave you guys with the last word today. So Jessica, could you share the first question with us?
Certainly, and thank you all so much for the incredible insights you've shared so far. So the first question comes to us from Carrie. Thank you for sharing your stories and experiences. What's an insight you would pass along to someone newly in recovery?
I'm going to actually just pick the order of the length that you've been in recovery for to answer this question to get the range of views. So Morgan, would you like to take that one first?
Sure. Say the question one more time, please.
Just an insight that you would share or advice that you would share with somebody who's brand new in recovery.
Okay. All right. Yeah. First, I would like to say that you matter, right? You really matter, and that anything is possible. Nothing is ever certain. Anything is possible. I think it really starts with loving yourself. With loving yourself. I disrespected myself for a long time by the stuff that I did to myself, and it put me in a very dark place. And I kind of gave up hope and started to lose little bits of my soul. So if you're early in recovery, I would really suggest starting there. I would get rid of any and all bad numbers in your phone. I would just wipe all those people from the street away. They don't care about you anyway. And as soon as you don't have anything, poof, they're gone. So that doesn't matter. And I would get on HumboldtNA.org and go on some Zoom meetings. And I would get a sponsor. I'd buy a big book or NA or AA if that's what you prefer. And for me, the last piece that I learned that I needed to do was I needed to go to therapy. The 12 steps for me was just a drop-off point. I needed to actually go into therapy and start to unravel that onion and talk about all those things that I never wanted to tell anybody. And I was against it when I was a kid. After my mom died, my dad kind of forced me to go, which was a good thing. You know, he wanted me to get me, but I didn't see it that way when I was a kid, right? In that rebellious 13-year-old state. And so I didn't like it. And now that I'm in it, I so look forward to every Friday going. And a lot of good that it's done, man. A lot of good that it's done. And everything that goes on in my head isn't always true. You know, people aren't always judgmental. They're not going to abandon me. They're not going to leave me. Nothing's going to happen like that. So definitely the solution is in the book. For me, I like the IP literature meetings. That's where the solution is. And just give it a shot, man. If you don't like what you have after a year by solidly doing the work, absolutely, man. You could go back to what you were doing, but give it a solid year. What do you got to lose?
Thank you. Jamie, could you share with us advice you'd give to somebody who's brand new in recovery?
Sure. You got to change all the people, the places, and the things. You know, it sounds kind of cliche, but it's true. You got to change everybody you're hanging out with. That's kind of hard. You got to make new friends. You can't hang around in the areas where you used to hang out. For me, that was Old Town, Free Meal, the library. I don't go to those places. And if I do go through that part of town, I go through real quick. And if you're brand new in recovery, newer than me, 90 meetings in 90 days to start out with. Go to a meeting every day and get a sponsor and start doing some step work. There's 12 of them, and buy all the literature. I only know about NA, and there's like 5 or 6 books. You get a step working guide. That's this book right here. And I'm on step 10 and starting step 10, and just get a sponsor, start working the steps. That's what worked for me. That's what I do.
Thank you. And Yvonne, before I ask you to share your advice, I'm hoping that if anybody knows of resources that can help people who can't afford those books to be able to get copies or access to them, that you'll put them in the chat box or email them to us so we can maybe push those lists out to other people, because I know the holidays aren't necessarily great times to be taking on extra expenses either. And it sounds like those books have been pretty meaningful to people. And then Yvonne, would you share with us your advice for somebody new in recovery?
The one that pops into my mind is everything everybody said that Morgan and Jamie have said. You definitely got to get rid of all those people that you were running with and those places. You just, if you have to go to have somebody with you that's in recovery. That's number one. You know, that's the recovery 101 thing, right? But what was most valuable for me early on in recovery, and so I believe that it's valuable to others that are just starting out, is finding someone that you can trust. We come from a place where we don't trust anyone. We don't trust ourselves. When I was in Crossroads, this woman came through and she had 3 years clean and she was bubbly and happy. And I was like, wow, I want what she has. And her name's Debbie Todd, you know, and she's in the field also. And I just want to give a shout out to her because she's an amazing person that taught me that I could trust another human being and not get hurt. And she eventually became a sponsor for me. And that was because of the trust that I shared with her. So if you're new in recovery, you know, take a chance on trusting someone. And also I really recommend getting therapy, you know, get that treatment, you know, 12 steps great, you know, that work is great, but I really feel that therapy is just as or more valuable. At least it was in my journey.
Thank you, Yvonne. Jessica, could you give us the next question? And just in case you didn't notice, I see Debbie Todd actually just chimed in with us and said you can download most of the literature free from norcalna.org, just in case you're missing the chat boxes.
Great, thanks, Candy, and thanks to Debbie. So this question came in from Jeff a little earlier in the session when you were talking about self-stigmatization and negative self-talk. So he says, I love that you're all talking about the negative self-talk that creates stigma within ourselves. I see 3 amazing people. How would you all describe yourselves today in a positive way?
Oh, wow. I'm going to just ask one of you to stick your hands up if you're ready to take that question. That's a definitely putting you on the spot question. Morgan, go for it.
Nobody else was jumping to it, so I'll go ahead. Let's see here. When I walked in these doors, I was highly suicidal, and man, just making it through the hard times. And if I look back on these last, since August 2nd, there's lots of progress there. And that was my hard thing. That's why I always relapsed, is I would have expectations of what I thought my life would be, and it just wasn't going to be fabulous, like owning a home and a car in 6 months. And so I would get bored and think it would never happen, and so I would relapse. But now I just come to a point where I realize that it takes time, and it takes a bunch of days doing the next right thing over and over. So today I would describe myself as a person that is confident, that is genuine, sincere, compassionate, definitely intelligent, that is trusting, reliable. Today, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And that I'm very helpful. If somebody asks me for help, I'm more than willing to stick out my hand, but I don't go around preaching anything. I try and stay humble, and I try and stay more focused on the solution than the problem. If there's a bunch of war storing going wrong, I just kind of go the other way. I don't got time for that. I know all about that. I've been all there. So definitely the biggest last piece I just want to say is that I'm not afraid to ask for help anymore. That was a big thing for me, man, is that I had all the smarts, all the intelligence, all the tools in the world, but picking up that phone to save a potential relapse cost me big. And so, bam, again, learning the hard way. So that one I got down pat today. And if I'm in a tough place, I quickly jump out of it.
Thank you, Morgan. Yvonne, are you willing to take that one?
That's my husband asking these questions, isn't it? So what was it? How do I talk positive about myself?
How would you describe yourself positively today? Besides obviously a very attentive grandma.
I am a grandma. I'm strong. I'm intelligent. I am determined. I am not afraid to get out of my comfort zone and do things like this. I don't know.
That's a lot. Thank you so much, Yvonne. Jamie?
Yeah, I'm becoming a complete person. You know, I'm finding my balance, and I'm a work in progress. You know, I need to quit smoking. There's some other stuff, you know, maybe lose some weight. I'm going to join a gym this week. That's the one positive thing I'm going to do this week, is join CalCourts. So every week I make little goals for myself, you know, and some big ones. And I'm just trying to be a balanced person, a complete person. And spirituality has always been my strong suit. So I'm becoming more and more spiritual. Some people say I'm too spiritual, but.
Thank you, Jamie. Jessica, next question, please.
Great. So this question comes in from Glenn. How would you recommend talking to your family about getting their support? And how could you let them know what support works best for you?
Oh, that's a great question. I am gonna say, Yvonne, do you have an answer for that question for us?
I can try, but everybody's family is a little different. So if you have a supportive family, like I talked about before, sometimes it's blood, sometimes it's somebody you picked up along the way. Yeah, I think that you need to have that open communication with them and tell them that you're having a hard time and that you're going to need somebody around you. I think that's very important, just open communication. They're not going to know unless you say something. You could say, yeah, everything's great, and then you fall down, you find yourself in a relapse. I think communication is big.
Thank you. Jamie or Morgan, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that? Jamie, go ahead.
Sure. I have my mom said, whoops, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I went out for a second. My mom's 78 and I totally have her support. And my little sister's in recovery too from alcoholism. And we're both doing really good. She's a school teacher and I totally have my mom's support. And then I have an extended family of sun dancers that do ceremony and like uncles and aunties that have adopted me and I have their support. And they're totally really glad that I'm clean.
Thank you. Jessica, could you give me the next question, please?
Certainly. So I'm going to skip around a bit. Here's one specific to Yvonne. Can you talk about the Red Road meetings that are available through social media?
Yes, I sure can. So through Zoom, there's many of them going on. Two Feathers, we have a Red Road meeting that happens on Monday evenings at 6:30, facilitated by Dennis Moffitt. And then there's many others. You can get on White Bison and look for meetings that are available there. One more thing is Trinidad Rancheria is also in the works of starting up a program for community members. There's going to be a lot of programming up there. I do believe that Mr. Guido and myself will be facilitating like a Motherhood, Fatherhood is Sacred program through Zoom. If you're interested, get a hold of Two Feathers. But Red Road, it's very similar to NA. We go through the 12 steps with the native twist to it.
Thank you. And while you were doing that, I actually figured out how to get the Q&A up, Jessica. So I'm gonna jump to one of the questions that struck me as maybe being really timely and important, and it's from an anonymous attendee today who says, "What would you do if you had a substantial amount of time in recovery and are feeling off track?" Who would like to take a shot at that question? Morgan?
Oh my God, get back on track. It's the most important thing. I mean, you're up there at the front of the line in the race, right? You're the example. You have all this clean time, and it's happened to me before. I've had 31 months before. I've had 11 months, and then I think I get complacent and I start to lose that gratitude, and I start to appreciate things in life. And then once I stop going to meetings, or I stop reaching out, or being of service, or in contact with my sponsor, it's just a matter of time before I use again. So if it were me, I would go back to basics, and get back in contact, reach out to people, go back to meetings, do what you did to get yourself sober in the first place.
Jamie or Yvonne, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. I think it happens to all of us. do what you did when you first came in. Like I said, over the 13 years, there's been points in my recovery when I've just wanted to throw in the towel, but I reach out. Like I said, Debbie, you know, she's been my rock through this whole thing. I think find that person, you know, that you can reach out to, do those things that you did in the beginning. That gratitude list, huge, huge.
Thank you. And then I see another question that says, what would you share? And I'm going to expand it just a little bit. Is there something that you could share with your doctor, or medical provider, or counselor to help us be better at interacting with people when they're coming in seeking help? Or maybe even when they're coming in and they're not seeking help for their substance use yet, but they need to be in for another medical issue. Is there something we could say or do that would be beneficial? I see that's maybe a blank look question. So Jamie, can you think of anything that was either a positive or a negative interaction that you had with a doctor or healthcare provider that might lead the way for us?
Oh, sure. When I went to St. Joe's with an abscess, you know, sure, they're going to look at you not kindly, but you know what, how I've found that if I'm respectful and, you know, polite when I had problems like that, I would get treated back with respect. You know, people badmouth St. Joe's, but they were always cool to me. So is Mad River. It's just how you act with them. You know, if you're respectful to them, you'll get some respect back. It's just common decency, you know. But they will kind of look at you funny, but you got to just kill them with kindness, my mom says.
So Jamie, what I'm hearing from you actually is that maybe one of the most beneficial things that we can do as healthcare providers when we're interacting with people who are struggling with substance use is just to be respectful and treat them like human beings.
That's what I'm saying.
Thank you. Morgan, I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of said it there at the tail end, but you know, I think that the two people that are interacting in that situation are from completely opposite worlds, correct? Like this person's an addict, they've been on the street, homeless, don't think highly of themselves, all these issues going on. This person's highly educated, lived a pretty maybe sheltered life. So they're polar opposites. So they're not going to have that genuine, you know, even kill connection when they meet. And again, you know, I would just say, give the person a break, you know, maybe a little bit, try and picture what it's like from their side of the shoes. If that was you, what would you need in that exact moment? What would you want somebody to say to you? How would you want to be treated? And try and depict that, you know, because it's in that moment when that person comes and asks for help, they might have been building up courage for months to get to that moment. And if they are not appreciated, if they are treated rudely or sorely, they're going to throw up their hands and say, oh man, see, told you it wasn't worth it. And they might not ever come back, you know? So, I mean, that's kind of what I would say, because I've had the same experience going up there to the hospital, but you know, you got to get it done. Some were nice, some were not. And some were like, oh yeah, I'm going to teach you to use drugs again. Very painful. So enter compassion, empathy.
Thank you. Yvonne, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Just real quick, you know, putting myself in the position of the medical person, just try not to be judgmental. I can recall a time, you know, our charts get pulled up, and as soon as you come into the doctors, like my chart says that, you know, I'm in recovery, that I had a heroin addiction, that I had a meth addiction. And so when I'm truly coming there because I threw my back out and I'm really not wanting pain meds, but it was that judgment instantly, oh, you're just here for pain meds. That's not why I'm here. Find a solution for me to help me not be in pain. I don't want pills, but I've gotten from the doctors some ugliness. And so, you know, just check yourself before you come in. Maybe you're having a bad day, whatever. Maybe you've had whatever your experiences are, but just not to bring that in. You know, that didn't feel good.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I'm going to crowdsource an answer. If any of you as panelists know an answer, feel free to chime in on this. But I see a question asking, are there any suggestions for people who cannot afford to buy enough phone minutes to allow them to attend AA or NA Zoom meeting time? And so I'm just going to throw that question out there and see if again, if anybody in the audience has resources for that, if you could throw those into the chat section while we're talking, because I know that is an issue that many people are struggling with right now. So we're running down on the end of our time, and I wanted to flip back to that last question that I skipped before, which is, what is the final message that you would like to leave the audience with today? What thoughts do you think are most important for us to take away at the end of the conversation today? And Jamie, I'm going to start with you.
Just to treat people with respect, and give people a chance, because it took me a bunch of times to start getting it. Try to stay open-minded. I can see how healthcare cop attitudes, because they see it every day and they see us over and over and over and over and over. And I can see what their point of view is too. So that people do change.
Thank you, Jamie. And I don't want to steal from what you said, but I do want to point out from a healthcare perspective that if you're looking at people who are coming back in with relapsing with substance use disorder differently than you're looking at other diseases, you're a little mistaken, because 67% of people with hypertension relapse on a regular basis. 2/3 of people with diabetes relapse on a regular basis. So to expect different behavior in addiction, which is also a chronic disease, is not really practical on our part. Morgan, what thoughts would you like to leave the audience with today?
Excuse me. That we all matter. I would just say, I don't know. My biggest thing is, when you're driving by that person on the street, or and yes, they're a little disheveled and obviously they're homeless, don't shout out a mean remark out your window, or, tell them get a job when they ask you for $1 for a burger. Sure, you don't have to give them money, but sure, maybe you can give them something to eat or point them in a direction of some food. A common theme out there is just that people suffer from a disease and that they're dirt bags, so to speak. Yeah, there's also a mental illness issue there. So I would take that into consideration. To build ourselves up out of this problem, it's going to take everybody doing their part. You can't just, have a bunch of good ideas and throw them out there, but then not do your part. It takes the whole county, the whole state, the whole world to try and fix every problem that there is. So I would just suggest do what you can, treat people with kindness, and yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Morgan. And Yvonne, can I leave you with the last word? What would you like people to remember today?
That there is help out there. That's what I would like people to remember, that there is a way for you to get better, that you are lovable, that you're worthy, that you're important, that people love you. You can get better. Be prepared to do some hard work, and I just want to say to Jamie, I'm super proud of you. I'm super proud of you. Our paths have crossed many times in my journey, so it's hecka cool to see you where you're at. And I don't know, those of you that are watching, reach out.
Thank you so much. So I just can't thank you enough for being willing to share your stories and your experiences with us today. I know that some of what you shared was incredibly personal and incredibly painful, and I'm so grateful that you were willing to do that to help us better understand how we might help other people at the end of the day. And with that, I am going to pass it back to Rosemary a couple minutes early.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Stockton. Thank you, Yvonne, Jamie, and Morgan. That was so powerful. And I'm just so honored by you telling us your story. We started with Mykia's poem and reflections from her sister, and we heard Yvonne talk about how much culture played in her recovery. And Jamie and Morgan told us, the importance of stigma reduction and the importance of perseverance, both for ourselves and others. This is a hard work and a hard road, and it does, as Morgan said at the end, everybody has a role to play. And so, being mindful of our role and our responsibility is so important. So thank you again for bringing our summit series opening with your experiences. So with that, as a reminder, if you want CMEs or CAEUs, please complete your evaluation. You will find a link to that evaluation on our website, rxsafehumboldt.org. You will also find a link in the chat, and we will be emailing you as well. Coming up tomorrow, we have a really exciting panel presentation for you tomorrow. Again, we'll be starting sharply at noon. Dr. Stockton, we're going to hear from her again. We're going to be focusing on understanding the disease of addiction. So this is really for all of us, whether you are a healthcare professional or community member, there's something to learn in that session. And then we're going to be hearing from Jessica Smith and Wes Harrison about harm reduction strategies in primary care. So super excited about what tomorrow is going to bring. So again, same place over on Zoom and Facebook Live tomorrow at noon. So thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.